I was looking at things as black versus white. And I think that's another thing the pandemic brought us is that we began to see the world in these shades of gray. Hi, everyone. This is Devon Spurgeon. I am part of the Dare Greatly Henry Crown Fellowship class of 2015. Interestingly, the last dinner I had with people was an Aspen Institute event. When I got in the Uber on the way home, the very first case had been found in Washington, D.C., where we all were. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, this is really going to change my plans for next weekend. It did. A year later, it's changed every element of my life in ways that I never foresaw and really brought clarity to what I wanted out of life. I'm saddened that it took a pandemic to do that. It took a pandemic to give me a pause and to begin to value things that I never realized I needed to value. Getting on a plane, going and getting a haircut, having dinner with friends in a restaurant, those experiences suddenly had new meaning to me. I do crisis communications. So I am a crisis expert. And if ever there were a crisis, it is this pandemic. This one tested my skills and my background in a way I never thought possible. You have to stay rational in order to make good decisions. You know, that is the constant tension. And because of that tension, I tended to really push back from anything emotional. I was looking at things as black versus white. And I think that's another thing the pandemic brought us is that we began to see the world in these shades of gray. What I realized through the pandemic was when I was real with people, number one, I could do it while keeping my rational side. And then number two, I actually was able to understand their position so much better. And it made me better at my job. It is sort of this crisis stew that we're all living in. And making decisions is incredibly complex. But that experience of needing to live in the moment, needing to be rational is advice that I feel like that our whole country, had to take. Otherwise, we couldn't move forward and we couldn't function in our lives. When the pandemic first hit, it was clear to myself and some of the other clients that I work with that food was going to become a huge issue. We were in a meeting one day, and in the course of that conversation, someone came up with the idea, well, since the airlines are shutting down, why not get money together and go buy a bunch of airline food and get it out to people in these cities? Like anything, you start working the phones. Sure enough, found a Gate Gourmet, one of the largest airline catering companies. They said, we do have all this food. We don't know what to do with it. We're about to lay off all these employees. What kind of ideas do you have? And it literally started with the conversation saying, well, how low could your costs be? And what if we bought this food and just asked you to deliver it to various nonprofits? They were completely game because it allowed their food not to go to waste. All of a sudden, they're making food for people that don't have access to fresh foods, vegetables, meals. Through this project, which we called Project Isaiah, we were able to give them square meals. We were able to give them sort of everything you get on an airplane, we could give to these families in bulk. An idea on a conference call ended up growing to a 3.5-month project that ended up serving about 2.5 million meals across 12 cities to more than 200 nonprofit organizations. And it taught me much more about the problems of food insecurity and poverty in this country than anything I could have read. It was an incredible learning experience to watch the humanity of people fighting to keep their families together. It was a privilege to be part of the solution for that moment in time. The biggest lesson that I've taken away from is that I absolutely must live in the moment. I am very focused on results, and I'm not focused on the process. In fact, I don't take a lot of pleasure in the process unless I achieve the result that I want. And what the pandemic really showed me is that the process is what life is. My anxiety level is so much lower when I am completely present in the task that I'm doing. Because I can't control so much of what's going on, I do take pleasure in those little moments, like walking my dogs in the morning. It's not sort of the big moments that we have, it's really the color of life is in the ordinary.